No worries.
Cool. So I'd like to welcome you all to my presentation titled An Analysis of Gender in the Discipline of Economics. So as an economics student myself, the gender imbalance across much of the discipline was very much evident, whether I'm in lectures or in exams. So I wanted to explore this a little bit further and the reasoning behind this. So for this reason, the majority of my focus was on the student perspective, where we see the underrepresentation of females first take place, where a domino effect then takes shape, where we continue to see the underrepresentation of females across all facets of economics. And the majority of the research conducted so far is very much in the US context, Australia, the UK, with very, very little done within Ireland. So I wanted to extend this analysis to Ireland and explore the situation here. So the layout of my presentation, I'm going to discuss the mechanisms which justify the reasoning behind this underrepresentation, and then focus on country-specific statistics where we can see close comparisons. And then finally, moving on to ways that we can reverse the trend and mitigate these mechanisms and help to increase female engagement within economics. So I'm just conscious of the 10 minutes. I'm only going to discuss the top 3 mechanisms here. So role model effects, productivity differences, and gender preferences. So role model effects are hugely important, not just within academia, but all parts of our normal day-to-day lives. Seeing those succeed before us gives us too a vision and the belief that we too can achieve our growth aspirations. So researchers and policymakers have cited the lack of same-sex mentoring as a fundamental reason for the relative scarcity of female economists. So Catherine Porter and Daniela Serra recently conducted research where they had 2 control groups at the Southern Methodist University. One control group was exposed to 2 female economists who have succeeded in their respective fields, and the other control group who had little engagement with these female economists. And the results were positive. So we've seen an increase in female engagement by 50%. And this is also seen at PhD level, where Hale and Regev uncover a positive relationship between the share of female faculty in an economics department and the share of female students graduating from PhD programs 6 years later. So if we move on to productivity differences here, I'm sure everyone's well aware of the motherhood penalty, which is very much part of not just economics, but all disciplines, where the presence of children in trade-offs between family and career may hold females back from pursuing promotions and projects. So if I skip to slide 10 here, this will make a little bit more sense, where Erin Hengel of the University of Liverpool recently carried out research from the 1950s onwards, examining 9,000 articles, and we can see that female authored abstracts are 1 to 6% more readable than males, and 2.5% more readable under review when referees aren't aware of authors' identities, which suggests this element of implicit bias that might be creeping into economics that is affecting females' probability of obtaining tenure, etc. And this final point here, where males are publishing papers in quick succession as opposed to females only taking 18 months, whereas females are taking on average 2 years. And it's worth noting that the onset of COVID-19 has further accelerated the rate at which papers are being published for males. So if we look at the working papers from NBER and CEPR, so in the first 4 months of 2020, there were 798 distinct working papers published versus 606 from the first 4 months of 2015 to 2019. And females are only attributing to 12% of authors working during COVID-19, so they may be less inclined to start projects at short notice, which is linked to the risk-averse mechanism, which I discuss in my research. And this is a decrease from 21% in early 2020. And then moving on to gender preferences, the final mechanism. So this is predominantly focused on the student perspective. So female students may mistakenly feel as if economics is not for them, given its predominantly overwhelmingly male at the moment. So, and females' perceptions of their mathematical abilities are often harsher than males, and researchers have cited low levels of self-efficacy and greater levels of anxiety within females when it comes to mathematical abilities and quantitative subjects like economics, which is perhaps why they're maybe steering clear of economics. And the emergence of new disciplines have also sidelined economics, so the emergence of finance, marketing and insurance disciplines. And students also perceive business as being much more employable and less demanding. And students between the ages of 15 to 17 feel that economics is centered around one key concept, and it's imperative that we show these students that economics involves so much more than just money. And Janet Yellen, for those of you who don't know, she was the first lady to head the Federal Reserve and US Treasury Department, cited similar findings that introductory courses to economics cease to appeal to the female population, female students. So we need to shape these gender preferences and show them that economics involves so much more than just money. So quickly moving on to country-specific statistics. So Australia experienced a period of significant growth between the 1950s and the 1980s, although over the last 3 decades, there's been declines in excess of 30,000. So if we look at New South Wales, for example, in 1989, there was over 21,000 students taking economics, whereas in 2013, this was at just over 5,000, which is 7% of students. And the gender breakdown was at 63% in favour of males versus 37%. And I'd like to draw your attention to the Women in Economics Network, which has recently been established in Australia, who have already done such great work, and they're focused on supporting the careers of female economists in Australia, as well as students. So they've implemented core projects, which is new curricula at undergraduate level, which helps to address real world problems that students genuinely care about, such as climate and poverty, which helps to promote gender diversity and inclusivity. And the Economic Society of Australia membership for females has increased from 20% to 40% within the first 3 months, and membership within the Women in Economics Network has increased from 240 to 540 over the last 4 years. So this highlights the great work that they're already doing. Moving on to the United Kingdom then.
1 minute, Lorcan, if you don't mind.
1 minute, is it?
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
So I'll fly through this quickly. So findings in the United Kingdom are relatively similar, where we see 65-30, 70-30 breakdown in favour of males, as well as a lack of exposure to economics at A level, which is another mechanism for why students aren't undertaking economics, where those in private schools are much more likely to be offered economics as opposed to those in mixed state schools. I'll move on to, and the very same can be seen at faculty level, where the breakdown is very much 65-35 in favour of males. Quickly moving on to Ireland, where there's been calls recently to reform the narrow economics syllabus, with much of the 1969 syllabus still in operation. And you can see here from higher level, ordinary level and undergrad level, it's very much 63-30, 63-35, 70-30 in favour of males, with the Irish Society for Women in Economics recently established, and they're hoping to emulate the great work already done by the Women in Economics Network. And the most positive data that I found within my research was at faculty level in Ireland across the 9 universities, where it's very much 50-50 in terms of males and females. And I'll just quickly move on to ways that we can reverse the damage. So increase gender diversity by introducing initiatives to help promote female engagement and catering to the needs of the student body. So moving away from the mundane chalk and talk ways of teaching and catering to the needs of the modern student. So we can see at University of New South Wales here, they recently introduced a module titled Play Economics, which is an online game that sets up economics environments that allows students to make well-informed economic decisions and then examine the outcomes of those. And again, just implementing mentoring and role model programs here in Ireland would be hugely beneficial, as we can see with Catherine Porter and Daniela Serra and the Australian National University, who have implemented such programs, which you can see have increased engagement. And I suppose moving on to the final slide here, sorry to rush through, but yeah, statistics across all 3 countries remain incredibly patterned, and I think it's important that we place all of the emphasis on making improvements at student level and transforming the perceptions of students to help increase engagement within females. And I think the most important point here, the third point, is about catering to the needs of students and making economics about real problems for females, and implementing new ways of teaching. And while there is a long way to go, there is definitely a sense of optimism through the creation of initiatives in all 3 countries which have halted relative success, such as those below in the final point. And that concludes the final presentation.
Thank you.